Welcome to the XpertHost Hospitality Leadership Series. I am your host, Bertran Moreno, the founder of XpertHost, where we help great hospitality businesses find and grow the right people. I started this podcast because I believe the best insights don't come from textbooks. They come from real conversations with real leaders who have been through the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Whether you're building your team, pushing for your next step, or just want to hear how others are making it happen, this is for you. Let's get into it. Today, I'm joined by Simon Casson, the Chief Executive Officer of Corinthia Hotels and one of the most respected leaders in global hospitality. With nearly 30 years at Four Seasons, including as President of Operations for EMEA, Simon has shaped some of the world's most iconic hotels and inspired a generation of leaders through his thoughtful, people-first approach. Now, at the helm of Corinthia, he's bringing vision and innovation to a brand with deep heritage. I'm thrilled to have him on the show. Let's dive into the conversation. So Simon, first of all, welcome to the XpertHost Hospitality Leadership Series, and thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate how busy your schedule is, and it's really an honor to have you on the show. As you know, the goal of this series is to bring real and filtered leadership stories to the forefront so that both seasoned professionals and emerging leaders can learn from the experiences of those who have shaped hospitality at the highest level. Many of our listeners will know you from your remarkable career with Four Seasons, where you led regional operations across EMEA, and now, of course, as the CEO of Corinthia Hotels. So I wanted to perhaps go back at the beginning of your remarkable career and learn about how you first got into hospitality and what drew you later on to the luxury space.
Thank you. Good morning, Bertran. Delighted to be on the Expert Host session with you here, and greetings from London. Everyone has a journey, and I don't think mine is particularly remarkable, particularly within the industry of hospitality, but it's one that started early. I think I was 13 years old when I started washing dishes in a local restaurant in a small village in the UK. And, I still have a powerful memory of, as I was washing those dishes, this would be in the, late 70s, the sort of heat and bustle and excitement of the kitchen, and then getting glimpses through the swinging doors on the other side of this sort of different world, people pulling up in nice cars, expensively dressed, and seeing and hearing people celebrate family moments, the chink of glasses, the celebration of birthdays or graduations. And there was something sort of caught me, very early that said, wow, I'm excited by, this industry that I knew at that point as, a restaurant business. And then as I was leaving school, my birthday's at the end of the academic year. So in England, you have sort of O-levels as they were, or GCSEs, and then A-levels, then university. So at the end of, the O-levels, I remember getting called in by the careers master, and him sitting me down and saying, Casson, you're a failure.
Wow.
We don't see a bright future for you. You've failed all your exams, and this is the end of school. And certainly I wasn't under the delusion that I was anywhere near elite academically, but I was, sir, can I not at least stay to do A-levels? He said, no, this is the end of school, or join the army or learn an apprentice trade, but we don't see a bright future for you. So, I went home, and at this point my parents were divorced, and I was living with my mum, and she had a day job and worked in a bar in the evening, so I was waiting for mum to come home. And when she came home, I said, Mum, I've had the big career chat. And she said, what did they say? I said, they've told me I'm a failure and they don't see much of a future for me. And in that moment, she put her hands around me and said, Simon, you're special. You're going to be a leader of men. You're going to have an international career and achieve great success. And so in that one small moment, it was just a mother's love. She didn't really know. But when the whole world to me was saying, no, you can't, I had one person that said, you're special. Yes, you can. And that's where it started. And, I sort of headed out into work soon after that.
So that was quite an interesting approach by the head of schooling to say that's the end of schooling, and therefore you won't be able to amount to much, which certainly hasn't been the case. What happened afterwards? So you got on into the world fueled by the love of your mother, and how did your career start and develop from that point onwards?
What happened afterwards is I became an amazing success and proved them wrong and proved Mama right. But it was a long journey. I was, learning my craft, washing dishes, waiting tables, overnight breakfast chef, housekeeper, cocktail barman, working in small country house hotels around the south of England, and, ended up in a small but well-known hotel called the Castle in Taunton, owned by a visionary hotelier called Kit Chapman. And the chef in the kitchen was Gary Rhodes, who was unknown but went on to become, at the sort of forefront of British gastronomy over the years. So really learned a lot there about, a bit more insights into luxury and wine and viniculture and service, and getting exposed to interesting and well-known people coming to stay in the hotel. And then a couple of years into that, I think I was 21, Kit Chapman said, Simon, you're special, you have a talent, you need to join an international company, and the best one in the world is Four Seasons. But they're very small, they're only in North America, but they have one hotel in London. So he wrote to Ramon Pajares, another legend in the industry in the 80s and 90s, to recommend me to join. And I joined Four Seasons in 1989 as an assistant manager at the front desk.
And then you stayed with them for around 30 years and grew the company to become the president of operations at EMEA. Is that right?
Yeah, for 34 years, so really a long, no one intends or plans to stay for that long in the moment that you join. But what I found in Four Seasons was, firstly, a unique visionary founder in Isidore Sharp, who was in those days very much at the helm of and guiding and driving the growth of the company, but driving it through a focus on people, a focus on humanity, and the belief that all great companies that have enduring success are built on a strong people culture. So in Four Seasons, I found it was a meritocracy. If I worked harder, wanted it more, pushed myself, developed myself, then I would start rising based on that, rather than which college I'd gone to or not gone to, or who my dad was, or who my connections were. So I loved that, and just saw Four Seasons really as a canvas upon which to paint my career, and had an amazing 3 decades, all around the world with Four Seasons.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like, based on what I'm hearing, that mentorship had a massive impact in your career from, the early days where the hotel where you were working at made the introduction to Mr. Pajares at the only Four Seasons hotel in London, and then, of course, what other mentors did you have along the way that shaped your journey, and are there any mentors that you still have today that influence how you lead at Corinthia?
I think the whole concept of mentorship is an important calling for anyone that aspires to leadership. Firstly, to receive it and be open to it, and to sort of cultivate mentors around you. And then as, one's career progresses and goes on, to sort of transition and ease into being a mentor for others, firstly in small ways, but developing that over time. So it's really a virtuous circle. So definitely in those early years, Kit Chapman, Ramon Pajares, I just spent a little bit of time at my home in the countryside with Robert Chima, who was 40 years with Four Seasons, and soon after I joined in London in 91, I think he arrived to London as hotel manager, and he was a revelation as this, American management philosophy, young, driven, charismatic. So he was a really important mentor to me. And then, along the way, I would include people like Chris Norton, John Staus, Antoine Corinthians, Wolf Hengst, were all important guides, examples, and they sort of modeled this sort of style of leadership that was charismatic and was compelling. And I think we're a little bit in danger in the industry of losing a bit of that. Mm-hmm. And I think people want someone to look up to. They want big characters. They want someone who looks, feels, walks and talks luxury. They want someone who can narrate and communicate in a compelling and inspiring way. And for me, I always looked up to, whether it was a Chris Norton, Antoine Corinthians, these big beasts that went before me, and was very much inspired by their style, their charisma, and how they modeled luxury hospitality. And as I said, I think in many companies that is waning a bit today, but I think it's no less important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's people makes the difference, right, in the luxury space. And I think it will be interesting to see how you're implementing all those learnings from your career into Corinthia, which you're joining at a really fascinating time. What attracted you to this chapter initially, and what's your vision at the moment for the brand?
Well, I sort of, I'd come to a sort of nadir of my time with Four Seasons, and it just became clear to me and to the company that, it would serve us both best if I moved on. And, I'd really peaked with everything I could do. I was running an amazing region of 45 hotels in 26 countries, had a team of 15, 16,000, and was really leading the company in results, whether that's financial, guest satisfaction, or employee engagement. So it seemed the right time to step away. Four Seasons is, and will continue, I'm sure, to be the world's, preeminent luxury hospitality brand. But for someone that had grown up with it and had sort of traversed through a golden era, for me it was less special than it had once been. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted to leave, while I was on a high, while I was enjoying what I was doing. And I think it was also very right for the company as well to transition to a new era of leadership. So I actually took some time out and was pretty much retired, or was planning to retire, just doing a bit of advisory work. I was at my little farm in Croatia and really enjoying that, honestly.
Lovely.
And then just started, 9-10 months in, didn't reach out to any headhunters companies because I was not looking, to re-engage, but started getting calls from big luminaries in the industry who, were running big brands and were asking me to consider being CEO of that brand. So I think 8 brands in total reached out, and these are people that you can't say no to flying into London, New York, or California to meet with. So I met with interesting people and it started piquing my interest. I spoke to my family, and there was a consensus that, listen, I have more to give, more to offer. And so I started calibrating my mind. If I was going to come back into the world of work, what would that be? I was fortunate I'd run a good race, and so was able to do it on my terms. And that was very much that I wanted to be based in London, that I wanted to work for a family-founded company, because I believe the best companies have a history to lean back into as they express themselves. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to be a brand that was small enough that I could personally shape and grow, a brand that understood luxury, but was still in the transition to becoming a luxury player. Because in many ways, when you're president of an operating region of a then large company like Four Seasons with that many people, you're pulled away from that which one truly is. I'm a hotelier. And so, becoming CEO of a smaller company, I'm much more engaged with the field, with the product, with the details, and I can direct, shape, and change this current era direction of Corinthia, building on the legacy of the founder, but sort of elevating and growing it to be a global luxury brand. And so all things sort of aligned nicely for me to join Corinthia about 18 months ago.
Would love to hear more about that heritage of Corinthia, and it sounds like, family has and is a key decision-making factor in your professional career, since you first joined with those power words of your mother that gave you the courage to kind of keep going on that low moment, and now with the decision of joining Corinthia, you also mentioned how you've been consulting with your family members in terms of what's next and making it on your own terms. But would love to hear a bit more about the history of Corinthia and how they reached their current position as a company, and what's next for the brand. What's your current priority with the company?
So the brand was founded over 60 years ago by Alfred Pisani, who's our chairman, and who's really an incredibly entrepreneurial, risk-taking developer, and started the first restaurant within his family home when tragedy struck and his father, passed away unexpectedly, he needed to support the wider family, and so started a restaurant in the family home. And from that, grew through real estate development, also through commercial catering and other associated businesses, grew a brand, and very much, also grew the spirit of Corinthia, which is, the people DNA, that golden thread that runs through the brand. And so over the years, they, did many hotels in various countries at different levels, in the market. And in the past, 20 years, that was sort of led by Simon Naudi, who today is on the board of the company and is group managing director. And it's really the work and vision of the chairman and Simon that I get to inherit and put into my hands to elevate and grow to the next level. And they very much have that aspiration and vision. They're very supportive of me and the executive leadership team that I've put together in order to take the company from founder-led to founder-inspired into this sort of next new and exciting era for the Corinthia brand.
Mm-hmm. What does that change from founder-led to founder-inspired involve?
So founder-led is where you have a founder who is, running the company on a day-to-day basis in every aspect of it, which of course, Alfred Pisani, was for the vast majority of the company's history. And I would have to say, as chairman of the board, remains very vibrant, active and engaged, but is not leading the day-to-day executive capacity of the company. So we're inspired by his vision, by his legacy. We're all benefiting from the foundations he put in place. So inspired by that, but led today by an executive team. So in Corinthia Hotels, that's me as the CEO. And the team, my chief financial officer, chief marketing and commercial officer, people and culture development, COO, and, so forth. But never forgetting where we came from, what made the company successful, the Maltese roots and DNA that sort of permeates throughout the brand. That Mediterranean soul is very important.
I can imagine how challenging it can be to balance the rich heritage from Corinthia with the expectations from the founder, who, as you said, is still very much involved with the day-to-day, and of course the expectations that always evolve with today's luxury traveler. How do you handle all those variables?
So for me, the sort of leading imperative to be successful coming into a company like Corinthia or any family-founded company is you have to have a shared humanity. You have to have a shared belief in the culture and the way of doing business. And, candidly, it's not easy to join a company that's been around a long time, but has, the board and most of the, prior leadership and senior team have been around for decades. It's not easy to come in with different views and different ideas, same philosophy, but different ways to operate and execute. And so the only way that you can be successful in that, to make, any change or evolution you bring in sort of sticky and sustainable, is to firstly build human foundations, build relationships. And, that's what, I've been fortunate enough to observe and learn over the years, is how to connect with people, how to integrate, how to change and institute change without that change being threatening or disrespectful to the past. So a lot of my time has been spent communicating, meeting, engaging, ahead of then setting out a strategic vision for the next decade for Corinthia.
That also, it's one of the questions that I wanted to get into in terms of how you build that leadership within your team and what does it look like. And if I hear correctly, what you're mentioning is about, being on the ground, communicating with people, meeting, treating everyone with respect and engaging them on the day-to-day of the company. How do you make sure that everyone in the organization at every level is operating on that same way?
Well, if you believe that it's mission critical, you find a way to do it. And everyone says that people are important, but it's such a clear reality in hospitality because, as the CEO of the company, I'm not opening the front door to welcome a guest today in our hotels. I'm not carrying up the luggage, serving the coffee or making beds. So my personal ability to impact a guest's experience is low to zero. So very much being convinced that, knowing what it takes to build a good hotel, which, is a right location in the city, architecture, interior design, the marble, the music, the spa, the restaurants, but all those things only make for a good hotel because they can all be bought. So anyone can replicate and copy that. And this quantum leap from good to great is human. It is experiential. It is delivered by people. And so that makes it incumbent on leadership to nurture and create that environment where people can be the best that they can be in. And the reality, Bertran, is that the guests notice that. Because when they're coming to London or New York and they're spending their £1,000, dollars, on a luxury hotel, they have a lot of choices. And they will choose brands and location and opulence and restaurants and spa. But all of those things they know they're paying for. That's included within the rate they're paying. And that same guest knows that they cannot pay for someone to anticipate a need. They cannot pay for someone to go out of their way to create a memorable moment and make them or their family feel special. So it's really all about people. And, I look at it very much through the sort of lens of servant leadership, that I am here at the bottom of the organization to lift everyone up and to support and make sure everyone has the tools that they need to do their job to be amazing every day, versus a style of leadership where I'm on the top ruling from above. And that is important to be communicated and make sure that that is healthily modeled throughout the entire organization.
So people, of course, delivering that excellent service that makes people feel special by, you kind of serving the organization from your position. What would you hope on that note that when guests are booking a stay in London or elsewhere, where Corinthia is competing with other big brands, as you say, and this type of luxury travel, of course, will have, particularly London, but any big international city, lots of choice. What do you hope they think about and comes to your mind when they think about Corinthia today? And why would they choose a Corinthia hotel in comparison to any other big brand?
It's a good question because there's very little separates, in luxury. I mean, you have grand buildings, they all have their own style, but, they all have, luxury mattresses, they'll have plenty of staff to serve, they'll have exciting food and beverage and, sort of destination spas. So, in order to separate, you've got to look at small levels of distinction. And we sort of look at Corinthia Hotels as these sort of grand boutiques, grand in that often they're in, historical buildings, but
yes,
boutique in the sense of how they feel warm and familiar and friendly. At the end of the day, our heritage is that of innkeepers. It's being welcoming, providing, shelter, food, and water, and getting to yes. So again, I think once you've built the physical, it's all about how you work through the teams. A sort of tangible example. I walked into probably one of the most famous hotels in London a couple of weeks ago, and I was meeting someone there and then going out, and I went and said, "Can I get a coffee to go?" And they said, "Certainly. What's your room number?" I said, "I'm not staying." And they said, "Oh, sorry, we don't do takeaway coffee for non-residents." And I thought, that's odd, why would you, I want to pay for the coffee. Why would you firstly not show hospitality? Yeah. Why would you not meet a guest need? Why would you not get to yes? Of course, my immediate next thought was, what would happen in Corinthia, London? And of course, not for me, because if I walked in, I'd always get it. So, part of the art of leadership is wondering and worrying and then testing and checking. So I had someone anonymously go into Corinthia, London, and ask for the same thing. And thankfully, they were, welcomed and, were given a coffee to go. So that sort of sense of hospitality, that sense of welcome, not scripted, yes, not formal, but intuitive and authentic, makes the difference.
And I would add to that, it's also a missed revenue generating opportunity because you're just turning away, to your point, right? More importantly, that opportunity to provide hospitality, to feel that person, make that person feel welcome.
It's there's an arrogance within it, and back to my sort of formative roots, I remember coming to London when I was 17, 18 and walking around in front of the Ritz and the Savoy and the Dorchester and being too scared to go in because I thought I didn't fit, I didn't belong, I'm not rich, what if they ask me what am I doing there? And something struck in me from that time. I was like, why would that be the case? Because, Gandhi had a famous quote that, and I sort of paraphrase it if I can remember, it was something like, a customer is not an interruption to our day or our business. Mm-hmm. The customer is the purpose for our day and our business. So as I sort of, grew and evolved and ended up being a general manager and, running hotels over the years, I always made sure that everyone's welcome. If you go up to the front door of even in London today, you go to a front door and say, can I help you? And I'm like, well, I don't know if you can help me, but how about, hey, welcome, come on in and have a look around. Should be a sense of genuine open hospitality that is often missing today.
Yes, I totally agree. And I suspect that's more accentuated in certain places because, Simon, this may be a bit personal, but on a trip to Japan, I realized how well they served everyone and how much pride they put on service. And you go anywhere and the Japanese will greet you with an amazing sense of gratitude that you're even considering making a purchase or, at a certain place. Mm-hmm. While I'll mention London because it's what's closer to home and what I experience more on the day-to-day, but you go sometimes to certain places and to your point, you feel a bit of arrogance and it makes you think, well, I'm here to spend my money. But anyway, coming back to the conversation, and if you look back on your career to date, what do you think would have been really helpful for you to know early on that you wish you had known? And are there any failures that you learned from along the way? Any big ones?
I don't think there's anything. I think I had everything I needed. And that's, and I know it's often asked, what advice you wish you'd have or what, if you know now what you know then. I wouldn't have wanted to know what I know now because what one learns over the journey of a career, it is that journey. It's not becoming a restaurant manager, becoming a general manager, becoming president or CEO. It's the journey towards it, which is a voyage of discovery. And I wouldn't want to miss those lessons learned. And so, in order to learn the lessons, though, you need to have a few things. You need to have a company that you need to have planted your feet and an environment where you can grow. If you plant a seed in a plant pot, it has to have soil and water and sunshine and oxygen in order to grow. The same with your career. Be judicious about where you plant your feet in, and is it a career environment that's going to nurture and grow you to be your best version of leadership in the future. So one is choose the company. Second is be open to feedback, because quite often we close ourselves off. We don't make ourselves easy to give feedback to, or if someone corrects us or gives us advice, we tend to defend and retaliate without recognizing that that's our fuel. That's our sunshine, water. And so be open to receiving as much feedback as possible and build it into, a skill set. And of course, part of that is, failures, lessons learned, things that we do wrong and can learn from. That's absolutely part of the journey. And, I've had as much failure, mistakes, and mishaps as I've had success. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain I would not have had the measure of success I've had were it not for that equal measure of failure.
So is that some advice that you would also give to aspiring leaders today, in a sense? And you've made a beautiful comparison there, in a sense that you mentioned, having just like a plant, roots, meaning a company where you can grow and expand, being open to feedback, because that's, as you said, the water and sunshine that will continue helping you grow. And you then also talked about the failures, right, that we all experience, and that's ultimately what also helps you get to the successes as you go through those failures.
Yeah.
And
you've got to want it bad, right?
Yeah.
You've got to, everyone looks at someone that's successful, so that looks great. I'd like that level of success and all that comes with it. But you've got to look at where you are now, and are you prepared to do, if you want where I'm at now, or it looks attractive, which nothing is attractive as it shines, on social media and things. But are you prepared to do what what took me from there to here? The missed holidays, the missed family time, the many, many hours in work, the low pay and stress that you have to go through.
It's a lot of
So
sacrifice.
there's a rigor to success. Success is not always easy or sexy or, sort of inspiring. Success comes through grit and hard work and determination and overcoming setbacks and failure as well.
Absolutely. And wanting it more, as you said, right, than other people, and making those sacrifices. And it sounds easy when you put it on a podcast like this and you just say, well, 30 years. But actually, when you think about every one of those years and all the decisions that have taken you in particular to get to the point where you are, it's really incredible. And on that note, of course, because I think as well on your day-to-day, even today, on a high pressure environment, executive role, you're managing teams that are global, properties, different geographies. How do you balance that with your private life and knowing, of course, from our conversation, how important family is for you?
Not particularly well. And I think, I learned a long time ago that if you choose to lead, if you aspire to lead, that comes with great privileges, but it also comes with compromises and downsides too. And so, a long time ago, I realized that I'm not going to have balance. So it was more a question of becoming comfortable with the imbalance. Mm-hmm. So even today, I work 7 days a week. In terms of, I'm thinking about work 7 days a week. I'm doing some work. But I also have great flexibility in that because my work is also a joy. And so, I choose when I come into work, I choose when I go home, I choose where I travel, what I do. And if I don't feel like work, and I don't work. And, it's not about quantity, but about the quality of work. So I think everyone has to find their own peace with that. When you have, young family, it's difficult. That's part of the sacrifices. I remember my kids growing up, for sure, all through to their teens, every year on Christmas Day, I'd go into whichever hotel I was working in. And even though I didn't have to be in the later years, I was a GM or RVP, I didn't have to be there serving. I wanted to be there to just go through every department and say thank you for working on Christmas. And then go home and, enjoy some family Christmas. Mm. And so, that's a sacrifice that the family makes.
Absolutely. And what continues fueling you now on your day-to-day? You've reached the helm of a very reputable company in the industry, which you initially started. What keeps you motivated, or how do you stay disciplined on a day-to-day with all these responsibilities and objectives and so on and on?
It changes all throughout your career. I think at the beginning of the career, you're motivated by vision and dreams, and then success and responsibility, and then money and material. And life takes you through this beautiful journey that by the time you get to later stage of career that I'm in now, it's about purpose and meaning. It's about legacy. It's about helping other people. For me, very much at Corinthia, it's about redefining what the brand means in today's world. Opening new hotels. Like we had the past year, we opened in New York and Brussels and Bucharest, in a few months in Rome, with many more to come, and doing deals for hotels all around the world. Mm-hmm. Those hotels and deals will outlast me and outlive me, and the people that are associated with them and the people that will work in those businesses are all going to be a result of the work I'm doing today. And I very much look that, as a CEO, you need to be working a company to a point not for self-glorification, but for the resonance and importance of the brand. And you're often doing things, which will only bear fruit, maybe in the years after you've left the job. But that's kind of like planting acorns, right? They eventually become oak trees, but the shade of which the person that planted them will not see, because they take 100 years to grow.
That's so beautiful, Simon. And I think if I hear properly what you're saying, well, clearly your drive is that purpose, that helping others, that legacy that you will leave behind, right? For others perhaps to enjoy and benefit from as well. What are some key initiatives as also the trends in our industry evolve. We have lots of AI, a big focus on sustainability, hyper personalization of the luxury traveler. From all those hotel openings that you're mentioning in Rome and other cities, what are some initiatives that, when people look back and see what's been done, you would feel more proud of?
I think firstly get the basics right. Before you look at how AI can aid or how having, a flame and water show in the lobby might wow and impress, coffee's got to be hot, shirt's got to be pressed, room service has got to arrive on time. You've got to get the 1,000 little basics right, because luxury is not meaningful unless it resides upon the foundations of consistently excellent service. Once you've done that, then of course it's looking for how can I elevate and enhance and create sort of magical moments. And I think a lot of that is still delivered through people, certainly can be aided by technology, and I think technology clearly has an immediate and present and important role to play, but not to replace authentic, human, unscripted, natural service. Just to, sort of take away tasks that allow people to be more present as people. And I think in terms of trends, I think it's just an evolution of things that have been around for a long time, and spa and wellness is, often cited. And what that means to me today is, wellness really resides on three things, the quality of your sleep, what you put into your mouth to fuel your system, and, what you allow to sort of pass through your brain and how you manage that every day. So as a hotel, the quality of the mattress, the certainty of blackout, the air quality in the room, the availability of in-room fitness and wellness touches, whether it's a pillow spray or a yoga mat. Wellness does not today reside only in the gym or the spa. It then goes through the restaurant and having healthy eating options. So I think this sort of desire, not for longevity, because I don't like that term, because, who wants to live a long time if you're not well, but wellgevity. So, being well and having a long life is the goal.
Absolutely. And is that something you've been actively implementing on the recent opening, for example, at the Sari in New York?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, small touches, so at a certain age, you get up in the middle of the night to go pee. And there's always the thing, where's the light switch? How do I find my way? You're fumbling around not to bang into a glass door.
Yeah.
In the Surrey, when your feet come off the bed and touch the floor, a very low-level light comes on to guide you to the bathroom. And as you get back into bed, 3 seconds later, it goes out.
Wow.
Very simple, very intuitive, very meaningful at 3 a.m. when you don't really want to wake up. So that's maybe one little tangible example of how a very simple technology, but it is intuitive. It's following what guests want rather than having an iPad with 50 buttons on it.
That's one of the great things of being able to shape the property from the beginning. You're able to think about all these details which would cost a fortune to an already established property.
Yeah.
But you can just set it right from the beginning, and that gains a competitive advantage compared to other properties that might not be able to implement those details as effectively and efficiently.
Right.
Simon, we're approaching the end of the podcast. Is there anything that you feel strongly at this point in your journey, something that maybe doesn't come up that in your opinion deserves a bit more attention, that you would like to bring up?
I think the importance, is, I don't have any regrets. I've been incredibly fortunate as I look back and have really done everything that I would like to do. But I think what is important is that you also build up, your own sense of self, your family, your friendship group, your personal passions, and invest in yourself, because as hospitality professionals, we're givers. We're generally empaths by nature and giving out. So to look after, our own mental health, our own wellness is important. So that's quality of sleep, really important to me. What you eat. In fact, my wife, Daniela Casson, has just sort of released her first book, which is called The Blood Type Cookbook, Power on the Plate. available on Amazon, by the way. But that's a book that really talks about practical wellness and about, how to have, a diet that is not inflammatory, a diet that according to your blood type is going to support your wellness. So that's important in nature. I live based in London for work, traveling a lot, but my real home is on a little farm in Croatia. So for me, being around trees and nature and rivers and the sea is restorative. That's my happy place. And I think we all need to, in this sort of crazy, pressurized, stressed world, be making sure that we also take time to prioritize ourselves, because you can't shine bright as a leader if you're a little dimmed with your light inside you. Otherwise it exhausts you. So knowing how to restore and replenish is also important.
Absolutely. Yeah, a very important priority to be able to feel at your best. And by all means, Simon, I wanted to ask, first of all, a follow-up question to just what you've mentioned, because the book that you mentioned seems to be very useful for wellness and for anyone that wants to improve their well-being. So it would be great if we could potentially include a link in our description where people can check it out, and equally where people could get in touch with you and learn more about what Corinthia is doing. Where should they go?
In terms of the book, I'll send you a link that's easily available on Amazon or through the website. So I'll send you those links. And for someone who's interested in what's going on in Corinthia, follow our Corinthia channels, also my own personal Instagram, which is Simon_Casson, which really, is not a lot of personal stuff there. It really narrates my work journey, where I'm going, what I'm seeing, what's inspiring me, as I sort of, travel this work journey as well as life journey.
Brilliant. We will make sure to find those links and link them in the description of the episode. And on that note, Simon, I want to thank you very, very much for the thoughtful conversation. You've talked about how you started from, your end of schooling and how you turned out into an outstanding success, and also the sacrifices you've made along the way, being a family person, but still putting work at the forefront and reaching the helm of a luxury and well-known hospitality company, Corinthia, today. So I hope and I'm sure the lessons that you share will resonate with our listeners. And we look forward to seeing Corinthia vision unfold under your leadership and continue succeeding in the industry. Thank you so much, Simon.
Well, thank you, Bertran. Thanks for being interested in my journey and also in Corinthia and all the exciting things we have ahead for the brand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the XpertHost Hospitality Leadership Series. I hope today's conversation gave you something useful, a fresh idea, a new perspective, or just a bit of fire to keep going. If you're looking to hire top talent or take your own career forward, check us out at XpertHost.xyz. That is XpertHost.xyz. We work with some of the most exciting names in hospitality. And if this episode hit home, share it with someone or drop us a message. Always happy to connect. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and stay close to what matters.